The most exciting day of any cruise is possibly Embarkation Day, the day you start a vacation of pure pampering and luxury. Come along and experience the adventure of embarking on the most elegant cruise line in the world, Cunard. Cruising is one of my favorite forms of vacation, and today we are on the iconic and elegant Queen Mary II, one of Cunard's 4 queens and the only ocean liner still in operation. We are in Southampton, a port city with a rich and colorful history spanning from ancient Roman times through to include the departure of the ill-fated Titanic. Queen Mary II, our ship, is moored at the Ocean Cruise Terminal, which is the closest berthing to downtown Southampton. And note, don't ever call it a boat, lest the pedant patrol come calling. And also, don't call it a cruise ship, but that's a different argument. Having intentionally arrived in Southampton the night before and choosing lodgings within easy walking distance of the pier, we make our way to the Ocean Cruise Terminal on foot. Crucial cruise tip: always arrive in your embarkation port at least 1 day before, lest you risk missing your not a boat. We once stayed in London, a mere 2-hour train ride away, until the day of our cruise, but rail repairs and strikes colluded to nearly prevent us from making the ship. But that's a story for another day. Back to the now. We deposit our impractical pile of luggage with the porters, who kindly provide us with luggage tags for our bags since the Cunard website capriciously refused to issue them. Arriving a cheeky 2 hours before our 1:30 p.m. check-in time, we head back out into town to do some necessities shopping, now completely unencumbered by our ridiculous complement of bags. Hey, hasten not to judge us. 2 of these bags are filled with massive medieval gowns from 2 weeks of medievalist events I'm attending both before and after this voyage. Our essential purchases include seasickness pills, which cost £2.99 at Boots Drugstore versus $11.99 on board. As we return to the ship, though, my stomach sinks as I realize something rather embarrassing. So I have made such a rookie cruiser mistake. I stupidly left my passport in the bags that we checked to go to the cabin. So now that we're actually checking in, I have to try to get my passport back. So let's see how this goes. We inform the porter supervisor, who kindly assures us that it's no problem and that I'm not the first passenger that day to have sent their passport ahead of them in error. We are politely directed to wait in the lower lobby of the terminal in the naughty girl corner, where I sit feeling like a delinquent student who forgot to do her homework assignment. Amazingly, though, not much time passes before my case is brought to me by an angel of mercy and my passport retrieved. We head up to check-in, where we find no line awaiting us. Apparently, only 1,000 people are embarking today, versus the 2,000 it was the last time we did this. It's a fairly rapid process, thanks to having handled most details in advance on the Cunard portal. Because we had no access to a printer, the check-in agent prints out receipts that function as boarding passes, and we head to security, where there is a small but rapidly moving line. Cruise terminal security, thankfully, bears little resemblance to the onerous, dehumanizing process of airport security. Soon enough, we are through security and making our excited way up the hamster tube to the ship. We scan our boarding passes and are welcomed warmly aboard, entering the grand lobby. There is a Cunard employee dressed in a vestigial bellhop uniform, but his function is merely decorative. Long, long, long gone are the days of bellhops taking any hand luggage you may have and showing you personally to your cabin, stateroom. Queen Mary II was created in homage to her 1910s ancestress, the first Queen Mary, meaning that her interior decor is a sleek riot of Art Deco shapes and colors. I personally adore this aesthetic, although I suppose it's not for everyone. Our first order of business is to head to our cabin and deposit our belongings. This is our 4th time aboard QM2, and convinced that we know our way, we simply strike off in the supposed direction of our cabin. Oh, hubris, thy name is Rachel. And yes, we are taking the stairs for 2 very good reasons. 1, there is a long line for the elevators, as there always is on embarkation day. And 2, my onboard fitness regimen involves always taking the stairs. That's how I lose weight on cruises. Oh, and by dancing in the ballroom for 3 hours a night. It's a pretty good system. Reaching deck 8, I realize with amusement that we have come up the stairs at the opposite end of the ship from our cabin, and that we must now walk a long way back to actually reach our room. No problem, all part of my onboard fitness regimen. Note that on Cunard cruise ships, the even cabin numbers are on the port side and the odd numbers are on the starboard side. I identify our cabin by the pile of luggage that greets us accusingly in the corridor. Our cabin key is awaiting in the mail slot, as they always are on embarkation day, and we let ourselves into our cabin. Oh wait, sorry, I mean stateroom. This is an obstructed view balcony, and for certain it has earned that moniker and then some. The view is not merely obstructed, but entirely blocked. Ah well. This balcony cabin is similar to the balcony rooms aboard Queen Elizabeth and Victoria, but with a few differences. On the positive side, there is much more ample closet space for long garments, really welcome for someone like me who adores long dresses. Moreover, the bathroom is decidedly bigger in all ways. Bigger floor print, bigger shower, bigger counter, more room for knees during sensitive operations. On the negative side, there are no 220 outlets, there is less drawer space, and there are no wall hooks for coats and hats. This latter can be easily addressed, though, by bringing one's own magnetic hooks, which we always do, like hyper-prepared scouts. We are rather ravenous at this point, having eaten nothing heretofore today, and it being now right around 2 p.m. So we head down to the King's Court buffet with a sense of desperate urgency. One whole grueling flight of stairs later, we find ourselves in the bustle of an embarkation day lunch buffet. On Queen Mary, all of the buffet stations are located in one literally central area to facilitate access to endless calories. One would hate to expend essential energy by walking unnecessary distance to hunt and gather one's food. By tradition, Cunard's Embarkation Day buffets invariably involve some sort of top-shelf beef roast, and we are not at all disappointed to find a lovely prime rib on the altar of the carving station. There is a pizza and pasta station, and even a separate section for people with food intolerances, gluten, lactose, sugar, etc. I will admit to disappointment, though, to find that the sushi on QM2 is not pre-plated beautifully the way that it is on Queen Elizabeth. Yes, hashtag Contessa World Problems, but still. Otherwise, here is what we end up with. The prime rib is a melt-in-the-mouth delicious, with a horseradish sauce that leaves me crying tears of delighted agony. As we digest our meals like bloated lions fresh from a Serengeti feast, we take a moment to read the daily program, which reveals that our all-aboard time has been moved well back from the original 4:30 p.m. to 7:30. As it turns out, we discover that a major Carnival shareholder wanted to tour QM2 and have dinner in the Veranda Steakhouse, and thus the time was pushed very far back indeed. Nice to be the boss, I suppose? Anywho. No longer hungry enough to eat our dirty, worn-out shoes, we decide to enjoy the gorgeous afternoon and leisurely departure time by heading back into town, where we end up purchasing quite a few extremely esoteric books that only geeks could love from Oxfam. We then return to the ship to do what all responsible cruisers should do on embarkation day: unpack. However, as we re-enter, we pass by the grand lobby and see the usual amusement park length line at the purser's desk, filled with the usual rather unhappy passengers. We once stood in that line to inquire about upgrades, and there was a man in front of us complaining rather vociferously about having been complimentarily upgraded from a regular balcony cabin to a princess grill. The ungrateful man actually asked to be changed back to his original cabin. Anyway, back to unpacking. It turns out that one of the closets has no hangers at all, so we ask a steward in the hall to bring us a supply, which is not a problem at all. He brings us about 20 wire hangers, which is laughably too few. Eventually, our actual room steward, Tint, introduces himself, and we immediately request another batch of hangers. He fetches us another 20, which satisfies our fancy fashionista needs, and then some. Well, believe it or not, by the time we have found happy homes for all of our belongings, it is dinner time and then some. We change for dinner, we cruise with Cunard specifically for the chance to dress nicely every evening. Also, I am determined that we shall wear every single garment we have brought with us. But back to dinner. When I booked this voyage, I purposefully opted for the dine anytime option because apparently I am Goldilocks incarnate. The early seating of 6 p.m. is far too early for dinner and 8:30 p.m. just too late, especially with ballroom dancing starting usually around 8:45, which makes 7 p.m. just right. We have a card awaiting us that informs us that 6:30 p.m. reservations have automatically been made for us for the first evening, although it's now closer to 7:45 p.m. In any case, like a proper military couple, we decide to run reconnaissance on our dinner options and compare. We therefore take a turn through the King's Court buffet. We then head to the Deck 3 entrance of the Britannia where the menu is posted. After weighing the options, we decide on the King's Buffet, specifically for its curry selection. Dining in the King's Court turned out to be exactly the right choice for us because we got to meet two amazing ladies and have the most fascinating conversation with them. And it took me a couple of days to realize that they were actually two of the enrichment speakers, historian Fidelis Morgan and the incomparable Celia Imrie, who were discussing and presenting a book they had written together called Meet Me at Rainbow Corner, set in World War II. It was quite a fascinating read and based upon the lives of their mothers. As a note, should one be looking to divest oneself of excess cash, Queen Mary offers two other dinner venues, the Veranda Steakhouse and the so-called alternative dining restaurant, which is La Piazza on this voyage. The Veranda Steakhouse charges a surcharge of $55 per person for dinner, and La Piazza costs $25 per person. Once more, having achieved postprandial lion status, we head to the Queen's Room for evening dancing. Cunard is one of the last cruise lines in the world with a dance orchestra and a proper ballroom, and Queen Mary is literally the largest ballroom at sea, with a stunning space dedicated to dance. Despite relatively light attendance on the first evening, the band is really on. We have a grand time dancing for about 2.5 hours, after which we are hungry again, believe it or not. Time to head to the late night buffet in the King's Court, which is where most of the hardcore dancers head for post-dancing nibbles. The late night buffet also offers us steerage passengers the chance to taste the sort of food on offer in the grills, for they put out the leftovers from the Princess and Queen's Grill restaurants for late night diners to enjoy. It feels so medieval to be eating the scraps of the upper crust on the ship. And with that, we call it a night, for we have an early port call in Rouen. And that's a pretty typical embarkation day for us. Have you cruised before, dear viewer? What's your favorite cruise line? We are onward for Le Havre, and then 7 days more until New York. Stay tuned for more cruising adventures with the creative Contessa.
Meow.
Are you alive?
Meow meow. I'm not convinced.